All right, how y'all doing? Listen, we having a little bit of technical. We won't even call them difficulties, but a little changes. Technology, y'all know how it goes. Listen, but we are here and we're ready. It's Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and I know we didn't have our normal intro, but y'all, we are here and we're ready to go. We got a wonderful show for you tonight. As you know, I'm Tony Jackson, the Real Money Coach, your host for the evening. And man, we had a great. I hope you had a great 4th of July. I had a great 4th of July. As many of you know, 4th of July is my wife's birthday, and so it was a special day each and every year, especially this year. And so we didn't have a show last week because of the holiday, but we're back. Now, you all know what to do. If you're watching, I want you to put into the chat where you're watching from. Charles, thank you. I believe, Charles, if you are in California, I think. I know you're originally from Cleveland, but I do believe Charles is in California. Where else are you watching from? Please put in the chat. There we go. It wouldn't let me unmute. There I'm unmuted. So we're back. I think we're back. So we got an unusual show tonight, y'all. I don't know what's going on, but it's all good because we're gonna make it on through this show and get this wonderful information from our guest tonight. Like I said, we're having some unusual things happen. That we've been doing this for over 3 years. And this is the first of this. So listen, but we're here, and I can't wait to talk to you all. Put in the chat. Charles, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? If you would just respond. If anybody else out there that is watching, please let me know where you're watching from and if you can hear me. And if we got the technical part of this worked out, we're going to move forward with this show because we want to give you a chance to hear from our guest tonight. If you can hear me or can't hear me, please put that in the chat. It looks like I have someone from Charlotte that says they're here. So can you hear me, Charlotte listeners? All right, we got Stone Mountain, Georgia in the house, right? Not getting any sound yet. Not getting any sound yet. Okay, Charles says yes. I'm assuming that yes means that you can hear me. So we're seeing what's going on here. All right. Let me do this. Let me bring on my guest, my co-host, rather, Michelle Mitchell. Michelle, how you doing?
I'm good, Tony. How you doing?
All right. Let's see.
Can you hear me? Maybe not.
Everything's kind of frozen up.
Oh, I'm here.
All right. We don't know what's going on tonight, y'all. Let's see what's going on. Okay.
If if y'all can hear me, I think it's on Tony's end
You think it's on my end?
because I can hear you.
You can hear me, but I
Yes.
can't see. I'll tell you what, Michelle, why don't you talk about the viral networking conference? I'm going
Sure.
to take down and see if we can get this worked out. Apparently, there is an issue. So let's go ahead
Okay.
and do that. Dante, you want to pull me down and
Put the Dante, put the flyer up. All right, guys, we are coming to Charlotte with the Viral Networking Conference. Tony and I will be co-hosting along with Tony Harris Taylor for the Viral Networking Conference. It's going to be July 29th. The tickets are in the link below and they're only $50. Guys, we need you to fill the room. We need to have, I forget, 20, 30 people. We need 30 people um, to fill the room. The ticket is only $50. I promise you it will be jam packed. Tony will be speaking, Tony Harris Taylor will be speaking, and I will be speaking as well. The conference is going to be, I don't know exactly the name of it, where it's going to be. Mr. Someplace in Charlotte. But I will be coming from Michigan. So if you want to see me, come to the Viral Networking Conference. We will be having a VIP night on Friday, so you can have dinner with us. I'm not sure how Tony's selecting the people that are going to have dinner with us, but I'll be there. So I want you to come. So put in the chat if you are thinking about coming to the Viral Networking Conference on July 29th in Charlotte from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's only for 3 hours. And I'm sure you will get a treat from participating in the Viral Networking Conference. Actually, Tony Harris Taylor is very funny. Like she's a hoot. Um, but she is the networking queen. And we're going to be talking about how we can connect with other people and have our messages go viral when we're not even in the room. So hopefully Tony's coming back soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in Charlotte. I'm actually bringing my husband with me, so you'll get a chance to meet him as well for those faithful listeners out there. So if you could put in the chat if you're considering coming to the Viral Networking Conference on July 29th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Okay. Someone's saying they can hear us on YouTube. Great. All right. Um, Dante, is Tony coming back? Not yet. Okay. All right. And I don't have the intro for the guest, so I don't have his information. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it. Because I don't have it. So tonight we have no, wrong email. Sorry. LaSean Smith. Why don't we bring on LaSean so he can introduce himself? That's how we're gonna do that. So welcome to the Real Money Coach,
What's
LaSean.
poppin', Michelle? You know what? We talk about, whether it's business or our professional lives, agility is really key to success. So we got to stay agile this evening. So we're getting
That's
into
right.
it. I love it.
That's right. So typically, this is how the Real Money Coach works. Tony finds the guests. He interviews you guys for the radio show. Michelle just shows up on Tuesday and have a conversation. So I know nothing about you. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
No, fantastic. Tony and I have had a great conversation. We talked a little bit about the life map. I think we'll get into that this evening. But just introducing myself first, great to hang out with you all. I am LaSean Smith. I'm based here in Seattle, Washington. I'm a full-time investor. I run a private equity firm called Kager Investments, that stands for Compound Annual Growth Rate. And I focus on building and buying companies powered by automation. So automation first companies are any type of company that really leans into efficiency and how it's run. So it could be a software company, it could be a local services company, it could be a media company. If automation is key, then that's where I focus. Now, the reason Tony and I were kind of talking about what I do even more broadly than my day job as an investor is, I started looking and meeting folks who, wanted capital into their business, or maybe they wanted to sell. And I didn't necessarily feel some of these folks were ready. They were almost there, but they didn't necessarily have the right tools, the right playbook. And I'm a firm believer that, there are really three ways to, your predictable path to financial independence. It's real estate, it is becoming a high income earner, or it is owning a business. And now, obviously, there are other types of cash assets and strategies that you can use for all of these. But typically, one of those three levers is how you're going to get the cash in the first place. And so where I found, a lot of energy is talking to people who wanted entrepreneurship as their path to financial independence, but didn't quite have the playbook. And as I started to unpack, I found there is an opportunity to really talk to folks who are aspiring entrepreneurs or people who are early stage entrepreneurs in the very beginnings of their journey. And so I go to places, hang out, and talk about how folks can become more successful. We've seen the stats. 20% of businesses fail the first year, 70% within 60 months. And this is the one that gets me, over 90% of businesses never make more than $1 million in revenue a year. And so I'm on a mission to meet, entrepreneurs who are doing it, who are trying to generate $1 million in profit every year. And so we can talk about anything, but that's what gets me most energized. And the idea of the life map is just a tool for people to start thinking through, how do they move on that journey? Whether they want to be an employee or an entrepreneur, how do they put all the pieces that we talk about frequently with personal finance and financial wellness together so it doesn't seem so overwhelming? So that's my hello, and we can take it wherever you want to go, Michelle.
All right, that sounds great. You're right in our wheelhouse. So that's perfect. Tony has the personal side, I have the business side, and like we make magic together. So
that's it. Let's make some magic.
Yeah, that's right.
So can you guys hear me okay now? Am I back?
You're in the building.
All right, I'm in the building. Man, that was and even my computer wouldn't even let me shut down. I was like, what is going on? But we're back, man. LaSean, thank you and Michelle, thank you for holding it down, because I don't know what was going on, but we're here. So I got a little piece. I was hearing you, LaSean, talk about a little bit about your background. Did you kind of go into a little bit of what you've done in that tech space? And then, we'll spend some time unpacking, the 6 different things in terms of the life map.
Yeah, sure. So I've been on this, what I call it, a very random walk in my professional career. So I've done so many different jobs in different industries, but the bulk of my time has been at the intersection of technology and media. So I'm professionally trained as a software engineer, but I've done, I've had roles as a designer, as product manager. I've EP'd 6 feature films at this point. So I've done all sorts of random things. And again, the common thread for me is, if you have a process-oriented mindset and you kind of point it toward whatever your obsession is, there's some interesting things you can do in business. Mine has been media. And so that's the bulk of where I spent my time. I spent over a decade at Amazon and Microsoft as engineering and product manager executive. And along the way, I've started 4 businesses, series businesses. I've had plenty of side hustles like we all do. 2 of them failed horribly. One of them was, as we say in tech, was a base hit, and basically an acqui-hire. And what that means is they basically bought us and turned us into employees. And then the last one I sold. And, that was the inflection point for me, because it was the first time I'd ever seen that type of money in my bank account. Right. So, at 35 million, I made my first $1 million. And, I came from very, very humble beginnings. So I didn't have the tax strategy. There were so many things that, even though I was fortunate to get to the point to actually sell my tech company, it still was like all these mistakes I was making. And so, as I progressed, I have decided to listen, I need to not let other people make these same mistakes that I was making along the way. And so, what I've tried to do is take the best parts of, what I've learned at working in these big, large tech companies, working in startups, and figuring out what are the parts to ignore. What are the good parts that we can learn from? And I'm a very, as I said, systems-based thinker. So I like to put them in systems because, there's so many great resources out there, books, podcasts, YouTube videos that people are like, all right, I got this. And my job is to help people put it all together. I'm not going to give a whole bunch of new ideas, but I think it's helpful for people to have a sequence, an order of operations, so they can kind of pull it together. And they're like, well, what do I do tomorrow? So that's a lot of where I focus my energy on both the business and the personal side.
Well, and I think a lot of people are looking for that, right? They're looking for, we don't, we buy something that has to be put together, and we try not to follow the directions. But in our life, we really need that. This is step A. And when this step is completed, now you move to step B, and those type of things to kind of create that order. And if someone else has gone through and already did the hard work for us, then that makes it a lot easier for us to come in. And I think that's why sometimes franchises work out really well for people, because it's a system in place that helps them go from A to B.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that you just hit on that I think is so important, as I was designing what I call the life map, these 6 pillars for a more predictable path to financial independence, what I was reacting negatively to, and I was maybe being a bit stubborn when I would look at other systems, they were many times saying this is the way, right? And so we so many times have to play to our strengths, to our values. I think you should go do the things that energize you. And, for instance, when I sold the company I was referring to, I started to dabble in all sorts of things. I had a great mentor who's like, LaSean, don't buy anything for a year. Right? He's like, that's step number 1. Don't go blow this money. And so that was helpful advice. But then, I did a couple spec homes in real estate. I was an LP, a limited partner in an investment fund where we bought and stabilized a few dozen homes in Detroit. I did all sorts of dabbling. And the thing that I found with a lot of those is, while it could work, I didn't enjoy it. And so I needed to pick things that I enjoyed. So, I have friends in my circle where real estate has really been their unlock. I do not enjoy real estate. I got 5 units right now. I'm kind of paring down further and further. I just don't like being in the real estate business. But I'm not going to say that's the wrong path for people, right? And so I really think this is a choose your own adventure. Some people leverage insurance, some people real estate, some people, can figure out an interesting playbook on public stocks and bonds. I don't do a ton of that. I look at, I basically just buy index funds, right? I'm not in here trying to, find the best hack. My playbook is simple: build businesses that throw off cash, put those in stabilized assets, and then get back to making more cash for my business. But my punchline here is, my way should not be the way, right? So it's better to have a framework that says, what do you want to accomplish? What is your destination? Over what time? Where are you starting from? Plenty of people in our community, sometimes, we're starting from a disadvantage. So you got to acknowledge that. But I look at it like, and so what are you going to do about that, right? I don't look at it like, oh, woe is me.
Yeah,
we still got to take some action. And so we need a framework. And that's where I think it can be powerful when you give someone a system that can work with, where they want to go.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you're saying about, basically that we stay in our lane, right? We have our lane that we enjoy, and
we have our passion.
We have our passion, right?
Yeah.
And when we're passionate about something, it's easy to then turn that passion into what, Michelle?
Profit.
Into a profit. Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
that pairs well quickly. I got a saying that profit beats revenue, and so Michelle, we gonna make those two phrases dance together. So
Oh
Well,
yeah.
cash and leads to the profit. But I just keep reminding folks, if somebody tells me, "Oh, our business did $100 million this year," I'm like, I don't care. How much did you keep?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Because at some point you need to turn this cash into the assets that are going to really give you a solid foundation in the future.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you mentioned that. You mentioned it earlier. You talked about $1 million of revenue versus $1 million profit.
Profit.
Two different things.
Yes.
And so often, we stick and we go after that million and not knowing, all the things that you got to spend money on, all the investments you have to do and expenses,
Yes.
that when you get to the bottom line, is it really a million, right? Is your company properly evaluated? Is your net worth really a million? You may have $1 million of assets, but when you stake the liabilities away, is it still a million? And
Right.
I love one of the stories Steve Harvey talks about when his accountant called him and told him, you're a millionaire, right? You're a millionaire. And he went out and had dinner that night, and she called him the next day, you're not a millionaire anymore. Right. Right. So it's that tedious thing. So, but
Yeah.
man,
100%.
let's do this, LaSean. Let's start unpacking the life map. And I know that there's I believe, if my memory serves me, there's 6 different things
Mhm.
involved in the life map. So let's start to unpack that a little bit for the people who are watching tonight.
Yeah. So the impetus for this framework was me talking to a variety of individuals, young people, folks who were older, or further along in their professional career. And, as I said, we have a lot of good sources of information, but how could we pull it together? And, for me, the punchline is I want to be free. I want to be free to live life on my own terms. And I like to work back from there, right? That's how I was trained as a systems engineer, to say, like, figure out where you want to go and then work back from there, instead of wandering amongst the forest, figuring out where do I go next. And so if we go to that first pillar, I believe it starts with making yourself valuable. And so that first pillar is become valuable. And what that means is build your talent stack. And your talent stack is really all the foundational elements that are going to make you valuable in the market, but also the things that make you unique. I many times see people trying to, take the cookie cutter list, right? I'll meet with someone and they'll be feverishly taking down all the career steps I made. I'm like, wait, hold on. You're not going to copy me, are you? Because that's not the move. What makes us really valuable is when we, kind of combine all the unique aspects of our interests, our values, our past experiences, and our hard and soft skills. And that makes us a unique one of one. And so that first pillar is about kind of getting out in the world and acquiring these skills. And, it doesn't matter if your form of learning is, classroom, it's, kind of on-demand resources. Some people like to go pay professionals. Like, there are all sorts of ways that you can go acquire these skills. One of my favorites is just reading. If I talk to someone and they're like, man, I don't have a great mentor, LaSean, will you be my mentor? I tell them, first off, what's the best business book or personal finance book you've read in the last 30 days? And if they can't give me an answer, I'm like, go do that before you're asking me to be your mentor. Because a great business book, not one just came out last year, but one, a business book or a personal finance book that has stood the test of time, it is going to be many times 10, 20, 30 years of someone's experience boiled down into a product you can buy for $20 and 8 hours of your reading time. Like, that's one of the best accelerators and the best return on investments that people can make. So step one is you got to become valuable. Step two, go ahead.
Even on that first step,
Yeah.
one of the things about it is that's not necessarily tied to entrepreneurship. I mean,
100%.
you could be a teacher, you could be a janitor, you could be, whatever profession you are. Becoming valuable doesn't necessarily mean that you're entrepreneur, because not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur, right? We believe in entrepreneurship, and we believe everyone should have a business, own a business, a side hustle or something. And so personally, like the three of us, we're entrepreneurs, right? That's in our blood. That's who we are. That's not everybody, but I love that being valuable because I can be valuable even if I was thinking like if I'm a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, I can still bring value and
Right.
understanding the value that I bring, I think is huge. I just want
100%.
to interject that on that.
Yeah,
So,
no, I love it, and keep popping in here so we can get more clarity on the conversation. But going back to an early part of this convo, when I created this, it's meant to be a fungible framework because to what we're talking about, I really do believe it's choose your own adventure. And so,
mm,
I can go walk through this framework thinking as a solopreneur. I can go through
Mhm.
this as someone who wants to create a startup, valued over $100 million. I can think of this as someone who wants to be in the C-suite, someone who wants to, work in public service or work at a nonprofit or become an artist. Like all of these are kind of, paths that you can choose. But the key is like you got to go first put these things in order. And the skill building, I believe, is your first step. Because if you do some of these other steps first, I think you're always going to do yourself a disadvantage. And the reason I start with skills is very straightforward. I'll give you a quick kind of wrapper around that. Typically, let's say LaSean goes out and like, man, I need some sustenance. I got to eat. I need some money. At the most basic, the most animalistic, I can take myself as an unskilled laborer and get out in the streets and try to make some money with my hands, right? And so what I want to do to make myself more valuable and to create more, more wealth around me is I got to go create some leverage. The easiest way for us to create leverage as an employee or business owner is to add skills. And so that's why that's the number one thing. That's the thing you can control. Now, there are other points of leverage. You can become someone who wields technology. Software can give you leverage. You can go raise capital in a fund or some, as a business, that gives you leverage. You can go hire people. That gives you leverage. You can go create an organic or some type of personal brand, on the internet, other places. That gives you leverage. So these are all ways for you to take your existing 24 hours and then turn it into magic. And so the first step along all of that is you got to make yourself valuable before you start pulling these other points of leverage. Because, for instance, if someone says, well, I'm just going to hire people. Well, do you have the leadership skills? Do you have the interpersonal skills? Do you have the right, can you hire people? And, what many small business owners realize, you all, I'm sure have seen this, is sometimes someone says, I'm really great at making this boutique furniture. I'm really great at baking these sweet potato pies. I'm really great at something. And people are like, you should start a business, right? and so sometimes that person goes and does that. And then you talk to them, a year later, if they're still, putting up the good fight. And they're like, wow, I'm not actually making these pies. I'm not actually making this furniture. What I'm actually doing is hiring these people, recruiting these people, retaining my best people. And so they realize that the people management, the people inspiration, that leadership, that's really what the job becomes. And so as you go through this, I think you also have to figure out what skill set are you trying to build. But it really is foundational that you got to become valuable first before you move on to the next stage.
Yeah, I think that's huge in foundation. So I'm glad you're resonating, Michelle.
Yes.
You're smiling.
Yes, resonate. I'm thinking about the E-Myth, Michael Gerber. Like,
there you go.
She started out making pies, opened a bakery. Like, she had to learn how to run a business, right? You needed process. Yeah. So, I mean, your process, what you're talking about works, but I think the key is you have to do something to make yourself valuable. You gotta be in motion.
Yeah. And, for people who are earlier in their career, I think we've all seen this. If you look at the combination of our soft skills and our hard skills, you've probably seen one of these charts where it kind of curves. And when you start, it's a lot easier to monetize your hard skills. And over time, as you get more experience, you spend more time with soft skills, leading people, managing people, structuring deals, people putting you on a plane to go close a deal. These are things that, are harder to measure sometimes. So many times a business, employer won't give you a shot at those soft skills right away. But if you say, I'm an accountant, I can do this. I'm a software engineer, I can do this. I'm an RN, I can do this. Like those hard skills that are easier to manage are a lot easier for young people to kind of accelerate and kickstart. And so whatever the combination ends up, many times the hard skills are the easiest place to start.
Well, and I think also that it's easier to account for the hard skills. I mean, it's easier to quantify some of the hard skills than it is sometimes the soft skills.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty good.
100%.
All right. So we'll move on to number 2.
So that's pillar 1. So here's the thing. And I find so many people feel crunchy. There's 2 steps here where people drop the ball. And the second pillar is one of the places they drop the ball. So the next one is build relationships. It's a simple 2-word piece. We know we got to network. We got to be valuable. Y'all throw on the event that I heard at the opening. Like, you got to get it out there. But here's a few of the missteps that I think people don't really lean into. First off, and I don't know what this is. I've had multiple young people, Gen Z folks especially, come to me when I say, you got to meet strangers. And they say, LaSean, I get so much anxiety when I got to go meet somebody new. And I acknowledge that is a very true thing, but it's a muscle. And if you never get out there and start shaking those hands, then you're never going to get past it. But even more, I think what is the root cause is a lot of us haven't embraced this idea of embrace rejection, embrace failure, right? The more failure, I've heard this great statement, it's actually, if you double your failure rate, you will double your success rate because you'll just have more reps, right? And so sometimes we're afraid to fail within ourselves, within our social circle. We don't want people to see that we didn't make it. We out here fronting. We're not, really living the life we're supposed to be living. And so that's a psychological limiting belief that we can sometimes carry around. And specifically for this pillar 2, it stops people from finding the magic. And the reason these 2 pieces are connected in this way is you need to build relationships so somebody can co-sign the skills that you learned in pillar 1. You see what I'm saying?
That's
because
true.
Like, if you I'm the best so-and-so, I'm the best furniture maker ever. And then, mama and them are like, you sure are. Well, okay. He believe in that, but you can't turn it into money. All right. And so meeting strangers are really requisite, I believe. And then from that, you want to build great relationships. Quick tangent. When people meet me for the first time, and, a lot of times folks will say, oh, would you be my coach? Would you be my mentor? And I like to give people homework. If they take massive action on that and they come back, many times I'll give them some mentorship for free, right? I'll say like, hey, let's go 2-3 sessions. I'm not charging you. Like, you seem like you're really going to be focused. Let's go down this path. What some people do instead is they hop on a call or they go hang out with coffee and they're just like, tell me the goodness. The mentor wants to give advice. They don't want any homework. They didn't come out to coffee for you to go get work, right? And so I think sometimes people don't think about, how can I be valuable, even though this person may have accomplished some of the things that I'm still aspiring to accomplish? And guaranteed, you have something that person doesn't have. Many times for younger people, they got time, right? Like, they can go brute force. It's like, would you like me to go and such? Or I heard you really were excited about, this certain topic. I've gone and spent 30 hours reading all about that. And I wrote this 2-pager. Would you like me to send it to you? Like, there are things you can go do to make yourself valuable to someone that is helping you. And so that's a quick sidebar, but I think many times people don't think about, like, what is the other person getting out of this, right? They not just, you're not a nonprofit. And the more, it doesn't have to be transactional, but the more you can say, I'm going to make this a 2-way relationship, I think the faster you can turn those into, valuable relationships. But back on track, once you start building these relationships, I believe you use them to create social proof. And
I was just going to ask about social proof.
Yeah, this is another one that's very important because, again, whether you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur, somebody has to co-sign you. And if you are, someone who's trying to get your next job, you might have a referral or recommendation from previous co-workers, hiring managers, people that, have observed how you work. Right. And, there's the obvious things, letters, LinkedIn, recommendations. All these things are part of the toolkit. If you're an entrepreneur, you need people to give you a case study, give you a video feedback. I really love video testimonials in this day and age because it's so
Mhm.
easy to cheat and write a piece of text. When you see somebody's face talking, like we're not quite at the AI deep fakes yet, where it's just like, is that really Michelle? And so if Michelle's like, this is the best power washing, business in the city, then it's like, oh, now I see a real human. I understand the
Mhm.
context. They're vouching. So even if I don't know Michelle, I see her face. I can read her. If you got a decent EQ, I can read her expression, hear her story. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to trust this power washing business. And
Right.
so this social proof is so critical. And I see so many entrepreneurs just quickly go into that lane where they jump to building a product and they're ignoring the social proof. But the person is like, well, why should I buy your product? Right. And many times, I think if you spend more time on customer development and more time getting that social proof early, those become not only your word of mouth levers, but they become your marketing collateral. And so
Mhm.
this social proof is so critical. The last piece in build relationships is to maintain them. And so you all have probably heard of the idea of a personal board of directors. I'm very bullish on this. I think anyone who tells me they don't have their version of a personal board of directors is playing the game wrong. And the short version of this, I got sent to this really expensive training where they got real sophisticated. And I talked to the lady who was giving the training at the end. I said, y'all could do this in like a 30-minute session. Like, this is not that complicated. And she just kind of gave me a little smirk. But the punchline of this is there are ways to make these systems and frameworks complicated, but then they're hard to put into action. And
Mhm.
so the simplified version of a personal board of directors, so you don't have to go take the expensive class that I did, is you need people who are going to be your door openers. These are going to be your sponsors and other people who are going to use their social capital to vouch for you. You need people who are going to be your developers. These are going to be your coaches and mentors, and these are the folks who are going to help you work through and kind of build your skill. And a quick sidebar, I'm a firm believer that people should look at the sequence as coach, mentor, sponsor. A coach is
Mhm.
going to help you with a toolkit that says, like, I don't need to know a ton about your situation. I just need to know a little bit, and I'm going to use my playbook to get you in shape. The mentor is going to help you with scenarios, specific things
Mhm.
that are going on in your
Mm.
life right now, that, whether it's personal or professional. And then the sponsor is going to, again, use that social capital. A lot of times people want to hop and say, hey, LaSean, I see that we got a shared mutual connection on LinkedIn. Would you vouch for me for this job I'm trying to get? I'm like, bro, I don't know you, right? Like, they just skipping the line, right?
Right.
They trying to take my social capital for free, and they were like, thanks, appreciate it. Like, that's silly to me. So anyway, so those are the first two parts of the personal board of director. The next are, you need your dreamers. These are the people who you're going to go, these many times your peers, you're going to go think up how to
Mm.
disrupt things, how to go change the
Mhm.
world. You're going to have these ideas. And then the last are just your supporters. This is Mama Nim. So my mother does not know much of what I do in technology, but it doesn't matter. She's still here for me. She's still supporting me. She's still saying, like, LaSean, you got it. Right. And she's proud, even if she doesn't understand the details, because she knows I stood up and did the hard thing when it got hard. And so
Mhm.
the power of this personal board of directors is, many times people will have some people in one or two, but they got a deficit in the other. And here's how I like to look at it. We talked about those 4 buckets within the personal board of directors. I
Mhm.
think that every have 2 to 3 people, like name people in each of these buckets. And every 90 days, I like calendar quarters, you should meet with them for 30 minutes. Now, that might mean you actually double it, because you might take 30 minutes preparing for it. So you show up to them. They don't have any homework, but you might want to prepare so you have a more productive conversation. And so that's 12 people. But it's only 12. Like, think about, like, if your board of directors,
It's the
these 12 people,
disciples.
you see what I'm saying? It's just like, you got to go and do it. And so
Right.
if you don't have that booked on your calendar, like those 12 people, 30 minutes every 90 days, again, I'm telling you, you're doing yourself a disservice. And so I get really energetic about this concept because it's free. Right. Like,
Mhm.
this
Mm.
doesn't cost anything. Now, some people choose to pay for a coach or pay for some of these services. So I'm not saying you can't accelerate it, but if you put in the time, you can go find people who will raise their hand and say, I will support you on your PBOD.
Yep.
Love it. Love it.
Me too. Love it.
So that's pillar number 2, right? So now, and those are the 2 big ones, right? The next one's a lot easier to get through, but where people get to this next one, this is when they start feeling themselves. So the next one is you got to make money, right? And you can do that as, as an entrepreneur, you can do that, as an employee, but you want to be intentional. This is the thing that I like to underscore in this. There's a great, and I'm going to paraphrase, story from Warren Buffett, where he talks about this guy he went to Columbia with who was much smarter than him. And he went and worked in a different industry. And he said, just by them picking different industries, Warren Buffett made way more money. He just picked the better opportunity. Right. So a lot of times, what we're trying to do, and I'll give you a personal anecdote. When I first started in the technology field, I was just happy anybody, me a job. They were like, oh, you going to pay me to write some code? Like, I would almost do this for free. I wasn't being strategic on like, what's the best opportunity for me? I was just being reactive, and I was coming from a place of scarcity, and I was just taking the first thing that was put in front of me. And so if you're doing all of this work to make yourself valuable, you're expanding your network. So people are out there blowing the megaphone and be like, yo, you heard about Tony? He out here doing it. And so now, you got all these people co-signing you, you're going to have more options. And so regardless of how you want to make money, make sure you are being intentional and really leaning into that. So we all understand, all the things that happen after you start making that money, but that's a really important decision that I see people choose an opportunity that maybe isn't best for them long-term. Now, here's where people fall down. Remember I said there's 2 places people fall down. First, they don't do pillar number 2. They don't build that durable relationship. Number 4 is you got to stay liquid. And I see this so often. This is where a lot of the personal finance, kind of principles come into play. I see it for business owners. I see it for people who don't make a lot of money as employees. I see it for people who make a ton of money. In tech, when I worked there, like, especially the executives, like we got paid extremely well. And there were still people, many of my peers, making over $2 million a year. Like, this is crazy money as an employee, right? Like, you're making, finance type, crazy money. And so what I found interesting is when you actually got to the brass tacks, a lot of these people were still maybe not quite check to check, but they weren't living that right. And why? Because they had bought a house they shouldn't have been in. They had, they were sending their kids to a private school. I'm like, why are you sending your kids to a private school? It's like, oh, well, the local city school is not good. I was like, well, why don't you just go buy a house in this neighborhood that has a good school district? And I mean, they're paying $40K a year for 2 kids, right? That's after tax money. Like these are crazy numbers. They're taking ridiculous vacations, staying at the villa instead of staying in the hotel room. And this is my point. It's not like they have to starve themselves, but at the same time, they're living beyond their means. And so staying liquid, the concepts we all know. You got to grow the gap. You got to spend less than you make. And I think it's just ridiculous when I see high income earners or people who are, even if you're just doing a 6-figure income, like maybe you're making $150-200, but you living like you're making $350, right?
Right.
I have this phrase I like to call people out where people say, she makes 6 figures, like, woo. And I just like to add a little precision to that, because $150,000 a year is not the same as $950,000 a year. And people they talk about it like it's a homogenous group. And so it's like that athlete in the NBA who's barely in the league trying to hang out with LeBron. You ain't got LeBron money. So you need to move, with your pocketbook. So this stay liquid one is really important, because I think this is what gets people in trouble, and they start to take on life responsibilities and commitments, and then it's hard to undo it, right? So then they get stuck, and then they come for help. But it's like, why didn't you come to me 2 years ago before you broke into jail and did all these dumb things? A couple other quick ones on this pillar is I really believe folks should look at their milestones. So whether it is a big vacation you want to take. Maybe you're saving for college for a child. Maybe you want to do something for yourself. Well, whatever it is, and all the basics, emergency fund, like all of these milestones, just being very intentional. And I believe the more you lean into those milestones, the more clarity you have to turn down the money dials, right? And those are all the things that tempt us. It's like, well, maybe I'll go out to this brunch. Maybe I'll go, upgrade the hotel room. Maybe I'll fly first class instead of coach. Maybe, right? And now you got, a purse you don't need, some pants you don't wear, some shoes that like still in the box. Like you just got all this stuff, and it's taking you away from the destination. And the whole hero arc of this life map is to get you to your final destination. It's not for you to blow the bag in the middle of the journey, right? And so this stay liquid is a lot of behavioral issues that people have. And the reason I said this applies to businesses as well, I've seen people who don't reinvest in the business. And as a result, they effectively shortchange the potential of where that company could go. So that's the next one. If you can hang on there and you navigate staying liquid, it's like, okay, what do you do with the money? Step 5 is you got to buy assets. And this is where people want to jump to, right? And this one's obvious, right? Like, as I said, for me, the pillars that are going to be the most predictable are, truly passive real estate, some type of, portfolio of stocks and bonds, and owning businesses. And when I say owning businesses, it could be a business you own. It could be as a limited partner, taking minority stakes in other people's business. I do both of those. And there are many other pieces. So I'm not saying those are the only 3, but those are going to be the most common that I think most people have. The asterisk I put on that is sometimes people say, oh, I'm buying assets. I got this Airbnb, this short-term rental that I'm into. And it doesn't mean the underlying piece of property isn't an asset. But if that thing is not on autopilot, that's a job. And it's okay to call it a side hustle, right? Like I think, there are great ways where you could make money from e-commerce, from real estate, from other things. But if it's not truly passive, it does not go in bucket number 5. And for me, a passive asset is something where you do zero work and the check still shows up every 90 days, every 12 months. And everything else, they might be part of your toolkit that goes in the make money bucket. And I just like really want people not to conflate those, because the IRS is going to tax you. They're going to tax that as ordinary income. They're not taxing it as long-term capital gains, because it's not. It's work. When somebody's like, I got this trading strategy. I'm not a trader. Like it's not my world. But when someone says that's investing, like, no, that is trading financial assets as a job. Now, you can be successful in that, right? This is the whole choose your whole adventure theme here. But that is not an asset. And so what for me, I will, like right now, I primarily have ETFs. I have some tech stocks that I bought a long time ago that I just have never sold, but I have largely just index ETFs, and I don't do any rebalancing. I just let those things sit there because they're broad portfolio markers, for something like, VTSAX or VTI or any of these. And there's so many, right? I'm just calling out references, obviously not financial advice. But when you look at these pieces, you don't have to do any work to go be smart and be like, I'm gonna go hire this person to help me navigate. I think you should pay people at the appropriate point in your journey, the same way you pay a lawyer or an accountant. You can go give them money for some advice, but I don't think they should give them a percentage of your holdings every year for you to do the same thing that smart people can go kind of learn in a day. So the piece here on buy assets is, once you get here, you're going to figure out the system that works for you. And I've seen so many systems that work that aren't for LaSean. So I'm not going to say those are bad systems. I'm just going to say, hopefully you're at this point where you're making smart decisions. And the last pillar is what to me is the purpose of this all, and it's stay free. And so once you get to stay free, I believe you have really 4 things that you can do. Number 1, you can say, now that I'm free, I'm going to give back. This can be volunteerism, charities, philanthropy, things like that. Number 2, you can say, I am going to explore the world, explore myself. Maybe just like you want to dig deeper into your self-actualization, or you want to go do some more traveling. Number 3, you want to reallocate your time. That may mean you want to spend more time with your family, with your friends, just kind of maybe spending more time with your health. And number 4 is you could start a new business. Like you could do all of this and say, now I'm going to start a new business, but this time with no loans, with no investors, with none of these other pieces where I'm in full control. And when you look at that, the empowering piece of this whole narrative really is choose your own adventure, because for some people, they will say, well, I don't ever care about owning a business. Okay. Some people will say, well, I'm obsessive about my health this whole way, so I don't want to wait till I get to the end. Okay. Like none of these pieces exclude you from customizing the life map. But
Right.
the premise here is, if you don't start at the beginning, making yourself valuable, getting people to co-sign, being smart about where and how you're going to make money, putting that money to work properly, and then transitioning your money into assets so your time is no longer the way you generate income. If you don't follow that type of flow, however you want to spend your time and resources when you get to stay free, you probably will never get there. And so we're going through this in a fairly quick kind of motion today, but hopefully this kind of hits the beats and gives people, like I said, not the way, but a way to think about more predictable FI.
Well, what I love about it, Sean, is again the fact that it's customizable to what your situation is. Because
Yeah.
what I run into is, everybody says, real estate, real estate, real estate, and not everyone's meant to be a landlord, right? Or
Mhm.
it's not always real estate is not always
My 5
passive
units, man, I'm
income.
so done with them.
Yeah. And then again, there's other things you mentioned, stocks and day trading, and so when people get something that's their thing, they really glamorize it as though it's good for everybody, and it's not. We each have to
Right.
find our own lane, our own passion, things that we do, so that we can get to that state of financial freedom,
Freedom.
right?
Yeah.
And then stay there. And it's just like, how many times you talk to people and they become debt free only to go in debt again, and then you have to become debt free again. And
Mhm.
so I love the roadmap, and there were so many different ways that we could take our conversation. And for those of you who may not heard it, you can go to our YouTube channel and see and hear rather, the radio show from last Saturday where we kind of introduced this. But I love how you unpack it, because I think it can help a lot of people in the fact that it's fluid. It's
Mhm.
fluid, no matter what gender you are, no matter what your passion, no matter if you are interested in being, like you said, a C-suite executive, or you want to be a mom and pop shop business owner. I mean, it's the concept, the map is the same. It's just how we choose what we
Yeah.
choose as we go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one quick addition there is, when I first started developing this, I'm a software engineer. And so I was like, I'm going to build this web form and I'm going to have people click these things. And it was just too rigid.
Mhm.
And where I shifted is, and this is how I use this tool today, for each of these pillars, I have someone write a paragraph and I say, tell me about where you've been, where you want to go, how you're going to measure it over what time period. And I keep refining it. And after the third or fourth version, it usually clicks for people because they're using fluffy adjectives that you can't measure, right? I'm going to transform my such and such and my so and so. How are you going to measure that? How are you going to keep yourself accountable? What mechanism or process are you going to put in place for when that doesn't go right? And so where I've landed is just have people writing words, but force precision in the writing. When I have them writing this, this is a trick I learned when I worked at Amazon. Is no bullets, no tables, no pictures, no fonts, different sizes. Every font is the same size. Every word on the page, and all you're allowed to write is paragraphs. You have to write in narrative form. And what it does is it forces clarity of thought.
Mhm.
And I have people writing these things. They usually end up to be about 2 to 3 pages. And again, 4th, 5th, 6th revision, it usually clicks. And I have them keep the old versions so they can kind of see the progression over
The
time.
evolution.
And once they see it, they've almost internalized it because they've done all these iterations. And so then I say, you tell me. And it's almost like they're preaching a sermon. They're telling me their life map. And I'm energized because let's say it's the furniture maker. I don't know anything about carpentry, but I'm excited and energized because now they're giving me this clear plan. And now I know everybody in their world can do one of two things. They can be a supporter of this plan because now it's been articulated, or they can get out of their life.
I love that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you either support me or get out of my life. I love it. I love it. I love that. That's a mic drop moment right there. That's
yes, I love that.
It's been a great conversation. If someone wanted to get in touch with you or follow you on, social media, whatever that looks like, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can reach out at the website. That's CAGR.com, CAGR. That's compound annual growth rate. Compounding is how we grow. So it's not just about our money, but also our personal growth. So always be compounding. You can also find me for more casual conversation on Twitter. I'm at LaSean, LASEN, or LASEAN.
Awesome. Well, man, again, thank you for being on the show, and it certainly is a pleasure. Look forward to continuing. Number 2 on the map.
The relationship.
Relationship, right? We got to continue.
There we go. Now, and think about that. Like even here now, we're expanding the footprint. Y'all got another person. You're like, oh, I know this dude, LaSean in Seattle, Washington, who is technology. It's like, here are all these pieces about my personal talent stack that you can think like, how can I exploit it? And I don't look at that word as negative. I want you to exploit me. I want you to figure out how you can put my talent stack to use to get to wherever you want to go. So excited to continue to connect with folks. You guys are fantastic, and I hope you have a great week.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Let's do this, Dante. I know Michelle went through it, but let's just, as we close, I want to hit this one more time about the virtual networking conference that's going to take place here July 29th, 28th, and 29th. It will take place at Mr. Charles on Cambridge Avenue. And as Michelle mentioned to you earlier, it is only $50 for general admission. That gives you 3 hours of network training, building relationships, the thing we're talking about tonight.
Yes, pillar number 2.
Being part number 2, right?
Yes.
This is number 2. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to hit some of these things that LaSean talked about. My presentation is actually going to be about, how to build assets, how to build assets using annuities, using cash value life insurance, those type of things, the things that I talk about in increase, protect, and dominate your money. It will be a book signing as well. We will have books there. If you have a book and you're local and your book has not been signed, I will be doing a book signing. We'll have books available. Michelle is going to do a presentation as well. Probably, I guess, Michelle, geared towards the business owners, perhaps, and so we're going to hit the personal side in terms of what I'm going to do. Michelle is going to talk to the business owners, and then the queen of networking, Tony Taylor Harris, will be talking about how to take your contacts and turn them into contracts. And so that's all going to be a part of this event. Only $50 for Saturday, 3 hours. The VIP is $125, and that will include the private dinner on Friday evening. So the Friday evening, that's limited to only 10 people. So Friday evening, private dinner with Michelle, myself, and Tony Taylor Harris, and that will include dinner. And obviously that also includes the events on Saturday. So we do want to make sure that you go and register. We need to know where those numbers are going to be within the next week. So if you are watching, let's make sure you do that. And you will simply go to the little what do you call it? Little URL, right?
The bit.ly link. Yes.
The bit.ly /BNC Tour 2023. We'll put that on the Facebook page and inside the private Facebook group. So we hope to see you there. That's 2 weeks from this Saturday. So, and I think that's it. I think that's a wrap for the show. It's been a great show. We had,
Yes.
I took a ton of notes. When our guests come
Yes.
on, you guys, I take notes. I got the recording. I can go back and watch the recording at will, right? You can go back and watch it. You can go back and watch it on YouTube. Matter of fact, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, channel, make sure you do that. But I take note. I took notes when I interviewed him on the radio, because there's something about just taking those notes, going back and rehearsing that and reviewing them that kind of ingrains that. So why get all this wonderful information and then not put it to use?
Yes, I agree.
There it is. So, Michelle, any last words?
Register for the networking conference. And
All
LaSean,
right.
you were amazing. Your tips are so simple and practical, not only for the employee, but for the business owner. And I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When he went over those, it was a no-brainer that
So
that's
simple.
what we needed to talk about tonight.
Mhm.
So we want to thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. We're going to next week, we're going to be talking. We have the former president of the Black Chamber of Commerce for the state of California, Mr. Carl Davis, is going to be on, and we're actually going to be talking about, guess what? A relationship cruise. Relationships.
Ooh, okay.
Relationships. So listen, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for your patience through my technical difficulties, apparently. And it's good to have you. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Have a good night.
Take care, folks.